what do you do when everything is collapsing around you? Is the sort of title that the psalm's been given. What do you do when everything's collapsing around you? So I don't know if you've had that experience. Yeah, you may say it's never been quite as bad as all that. Or you may say I've had that experience loads of times. What do you do when everything is collapsing around you? And then we're going to go back to the psalm and see if it's got some clues for that situation. A situation where everything's collapsing around you is kind of one where you think, I never thought it would come to this, I never thought I'd be in this situation. Like it could be divorce. It could be somebody thinks, I wanted to be married for life. I never thought we'd get to this point. It's all collapsing around me. Or another feeling is, I can't see my way into the future. I can't see what I'm going to do about this. It could be like a sort of medical thing, like you see your doctor and you get this terrible news back from some tests that you've been having, and you think, I can't see what the future holds anymore. Or sometimes it's feelings, like this challenges who I am. It challenges me to the marrow. I've had a small company and employed 3 or 4 people, and they're all personal friends. And I thought I'd been doing them a favour, and now my business is going bankrupt. I can't keep it going. It's all gone down the chute. And I feel, these people that I've tried to give work to now, I've got to tell them I've got no work for them, and they're all going to be in a bad place. And I can't believe, it's like my whole feeling like I was doing good, now I seem to have ended up doing harm. Who am I? Or sometimes, even situations that bring us to a breakdown, literally a real breakdown, could end up in hospital, or if not quite that bad, a kind of feeling of being broken down. There's all situations. There's the ones I've mentioned, but there's obviously bereavement, there's a sense of failure, there's struggle with faith, I seem to be losing my faith in God. There's feelings of identity, sexuality. There's a lot of different things that hit people very hard. And then they could be saying, what am I going to do when everything is collapsing around me? So this is our Psalm 46 that's been given that title, and we're going to see if it can help us. You might think, oh, well, I've never got to that low point. But to take another phrase from the Bible, I suppose, those who stand take care lest they fall, because we never really know what the future will hold for us. And on the whole, I suppose as you get older, more challenges come your way. So what are we going to do? Psalm 46 has often helped people who felt that everything's collapsing around them. And I'll tell you one very famous person that memorized this psalm. He found it was so helpful that he could speak it out by memory. And this was Martin Luther, the pioneer of the Reformation. He had great sort of pressures in his life. He was always clashing with somebody, which could include the Pope or the King. He had tremendous sort of clashes. And he also had a great sense of spiritual conflict. One time he felt the devil was attacking him so hard that he picked up the ink pot from his desk and threw it at the devil. The devil felt that real to him at that moment. He had this great sort of sense of battle in his life sometimes, mixed in with the joys. And like I say, he memorized Psalm 46, and when it all began to seem too much, he was able to speak it out in German, I suppose, because he translated the whole Bible into German. That was one of his achievements. And other people have felt the same, especially maybe those verses that came at the beginning, when it said, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. That's verse 1. Or maybe also especially verse 10, when it says, be still and know that I am God. And these are sayings that people have latched onto and found are very, very powerful. And it's great to have a few sayings from the Bible, verses that you've got stockpiled away for situations. We can always have a Bible to hand. You may have a Bible on a phone. I carry the Bible on my phone, so I can always look up something. But at least for a few verses, how fantastic to actually just know them. And when you're deeply agitated, just say to yourself, be still and know that I am God. Or when you feel very alone, just say, a very present help in trouble. And these things can mean a lot. So this is what Luther did. This is what we can do. I think when pressure comes into our lives, which of course pressure is bound to come into our lives, when pressure comes into our lives, I would say how we respond is partly choice. I know sometimes it's so overwhelming you seem to lose your power to choose. But all the same, I would say normally when pressure comes into your life, you respond and you've got the choice, and you can either say, God seems to be letting me down, I'm going to turn away from God, or my faith in God doesn't seem to be doing it, it's not adequate to help me, I'm going to give up on it. You can either respond in that way and turn away from God, or you can go exactly the other way and you can say, Lord, I'm overwhelmed. I'm crying out to you. Don't know what's going on. At this moment, I need you more than ever. And I think there's something quite natural about the first response. Because sometimes when troubles come, we just lock into ourselves. We kind of build a wall around ourselves and we kind of tighten up and we're not open to any help from outside, even from God, even from people that we're closest to. Sometimes we just get so tense and so defensive and so scared somehow that we freeze up and we block out and we block God out. And I think that's quite understandable how we do that. We can feel that. But actually, at that moment, I would just say to you, make the choice. Say, no, I'm not going to block God out right now. This is the moment where I'm going to specially invite God in and say, Lord, in all this kind of experience I'm going through, which I didn't ever think would happen to me, where I feel such a failure, where I can't see my way into the future, where I'm more or less breaking down, Lord, this more than ever is when I turn to you. Kind of choice, really, one way or the other. So what does the psalm really say about God? Well, I've already read you the first verse. So it starts like this. God is our refuge and strength. He's a kind of a strong refuge. He's our refuge and strength. Because there's always weak refuges. Like the weak refuge that people take more than anything else probably is drink. Like when people are stressing like mad. I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago, so this is quite fresh in my mind. And this chap has had a sort of drinking past, and he's trying to put it behind him. But when things become difficult in his situation, which involves his relationship with his ex-partner and everything and the child, so he's fraught about it all. And when it gets too much, he turns back to drink, you see. But the drink is a weak refuge, isn't it? It's a weak refuge, but God is a strong refuge. He's called our refuge and strength. Because, if you go down the weak refuge, like substance of any kind, then it's just going to leave you weaker than ever. It's going to prop you up short term and pull you down long term. But God is our refuge and strength. He's trying to be a genuine refuge, a genuine place of safety, and build us up in strength, not pull us down. So God is our refuge and strength. And it says he's an ever-present help in trouble. So I'll tell you a funny thing that happened to me on Thursday. I was just thinking about, being here today and what I could say to you. I think I was literally just sitting down there with a bit of paper thinking, what am I going to say? But anyway, I got a bit distracted and looked at a message that had come through to me. And unbelievably, it was a girl who wants to apply for a children's worker job in the church where I'm involved, and she has to demonstrate a children's talk on video. She has to, the candidates have to make a little video of themselves, like speaking to children. So, and I had this one come through to me, and I was just amazed to find that the topic this girl had chosen for her sort of sample children's talk was Psalm 46. Incredible. I was just sitting there trying to think about Psalm 46. Unbelievably, this girl sent me a message about Psalm 46. And she was speaking especially to children, or imagining she was. She was just speaking to her camera, to her phone. But she was pretending to be speaking to children. So she got a little bit of a kind of a rap going. And she said, instead of saying ever present, it's more kind of normal maybe to say always there. So she said, I want you to, every time I say ever present, you say always there. And it became a bit of a sort of chant thing. I'm not going to do this actually right now to you, unless you want to. Oh, well, perhaps we could. I think you all want to. I can think of people looking like they want to. So if I say ever present, you say always there. Ever present. Always there. Okay, I might throw it in once or twice more, like this girl did on the film. But it was, and she was on situations as well that can arise more in a child's life, because it's not only adults that can feel everything's collapsing around them. A child, I think, can feel it even more because they've got less defences if they're experiencing bullying or family troubles or big worries. You know, a child's got very few defences, and it really feels like everything's collapsing, and we really want to share faith with our children, not just for the future, but so that they can have it right now when the hard things come into their lives. So anyway, this simple film came down to this simple message, really. Ever present, always there. And that's very good, isn't it? So God is he's our strong refuge, not a weak refuge, but a strong refuge, and he's always there. And that's what the psalm writer experienced and wrote down, and that's what people have used this psalm to remind them of ever since. And the psalm goes a bit amazing. He says, though the earth gives way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, and though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging, we will not fear. It's a bit like the book of Revelation, if you know that. All these cataclysmic things happen, and it says, but those who overcome, who never lose their trust in God, they'll hang on in there and keep the faith. So I don't suppose this week we'll see the mountains falling into the sea. Maybe it's partly an expression, or it just means come what may. Come what may. There's a lovely thing in the book of Job, actually, in the Bible, where Job says everything starts going wrong for him, loses all his money and illness and everything goes wrong for him. And then he says, though God slays me, still will I trust him. He says, I'm not going to get knocked out of my faith. Every single thing's going wrong, but I'm still going to trust. And this is what the psalm says. Anything can happen, though the mountains fall into the sea, yet we will not fear. So it is that kind of decision I was talking about, I think. Deciding not to give way. It's like they say, lean into the Lord. Don't lean away. Lean into the Lord. Sort of trust him. Believe that he can take your weight when you can hardly hold it up yourself. And the psalm goes on a bit like this. Then it goes to quite a puzzling verse. I've been looking this up, but I don't completely feel clear. It says, verse 4, there's a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. Well, normally in the Bible, I think the city of God is Jerusalem. And strangely, Ambon and I have only just been in Jerusalem. We had a great opportunity to go. We originally met there in 1985, and we've just been back on a kind of nostalgia trip. but also, it's really fantastic. If you ever get the chance to go to Israel, obviously it's not everybody can afford to, and it's free to and everything, I understand that completely. But if you ever do get the chance, it is such a fantastic thing to go. And many things in the Bible that you didn't quite get clear on suddenly become much clearer. And things that were just in a book, suddenly you think, oh no, it happened here, just around this corner. It's really wonderful to do that. And but one thing we noticed was that Jerusalem's got no river. It's unlike most great cities, I suppose, or Plymouth itself, got two rivers really, but most cities have got at least one river. That's more or less why they're built there. But Jerusalem, just the opposite. I think it was built high on a hilltop to be defensible and for whatever reasons, and has no river. So it's a funny saying in the psalm, really, because you think the city of God normally means Jerusalem. There's a river whose streams make glad the city of God. So, okay, again, dipping around the Bible. I seem to be dipping around the Bible a lot today. You might know in the prophet Ezekiel, he had a kind of vision where he saw a river flowing out of Jerusalem and all the way down to the Dead Sea, where it could make the salt water fresh. Or you might know in the book of Revelation, right at the end, it pictures the new Jerusalem coming down from heaven. Fantastic, a huge, wonderful city of God. And it says there that there is a river of life, and the tree of life seems to straddle across the river, and the leaves are for the healing of the nations. So maybe especially because Jerusalem hadn't got a river in a literal sense, all it's really got is the Gihon spring, taken by the tunnel of Hezekiah to the pool of Siloam. But that's just a kind of underground tunnel. It hasn't really got a river. So so maybe it's a bit more spiritual and a bit more future, that one day, that now already the city of God is not just one city. It's God's people dispersed throughout the world, the city of God. And one day the new Jerusalem will be the place where we can all dwell. And in God's life and in God's presence, there is a river which is refreshment, really. Refreshment. It's been very dry here recently, hasn't it, actually? I was so pleased. It rained night before last, wasn't it? Did you get that rain? And also a little bit last night as well, I think. And it's perfect. If it keeps on raining at night and being sunny in the day, I think we've really hit the jackpot. So we'll see. But it's fantastic. When the ground is so dry and the grass is going yellow and everything looks a bit arid, and suddenly the rain comes. Water, water means life sometimes. And even more in the Bible, because there's, dry, hot countries. And it says, but there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God. And a river just flows even and steady, really. And I think, I was thinking about this in connection with this thing, what am I going to do when everything's collapsing around me? And I think the thing is, you don't really want to wait till that day. You don't want to wait till that day and then suddenly think, how am I going to cope? Can I trust God? You want to be ready already. You want to lead a life where God's Spirit does flow like a refreshing river through your life. And that is, you want to be praying, you want to be getting to know the Bible, you want to be here in worship, you want to be trusting God from day to day, you want to be ambitious to follow him. And as you do, it's like a stream of refreshment. And I think this is maybe what the psalm writer meant. So if you've got a steady flowing stream, and it just flows on from day to day and week to week and year to year through your life, then of course when these terrible times hit you, they will hit you. I'm not saying that you'll be immune from that, but when they do hit you, at least you'll already have this refreshment, this life, this presence of the Holy Spirit flowing. And that will be something that can keep on flowing and can make a big difference when that time comes. I'll give you one last thought from the psalm, because it's got a bit of a sort of refrain. If you notice when Anne read it to us, it goes, "The Lord Almighty is with us, the God of Jacob is our fortress." Comes halfway through and it comes again at the end. And that's interesting as well. And they call him the Lord Almighty. I was talking about names for God, actually, at the beginning of the service. And a name they often used is the God of Abraham, or the God of Jacob, or sometimes the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or something like that. If anything, we think most of Abraham, I think. But they often thought most of Jacob, actually, as their forefather. Because it was Jacob whose name was changed to Israel. And after that, they were called the children of Israel. Well, he had the 12 children, and the 12 tribes descended from there, and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And so they look back to Jacob as the father of their nation in many ways. And they were calling, in this psalm, it calls God the God of Jacob. And what it's saying is, like for, say, 1,800 years, from the time of the psalm, say maybe 1,000 years, or 800 years, or 1,000 years, from the time of Jacob till the time this psalm was written, for hundreds and hundreds of years, the God of Jacob has been our God. In other words, they're saying we're rooted. We've trusted God, not only us, but, down the years. We're rooted in faith. He's the God of Jacob. Then he was the God of, Joseph when he went down to Egypt. He was the God of Moses when he brought them back from Egypt. God of Joshua who brought them into the promised land. And the God of Gideon and Deborah and all the judges. And then he was the God of Saul and David and Solomon and all the kings. And, he's our God too. We've trusted him individually. The prophets have spoken about him. They were kind of rooted. And they call him the God of Jacob. They said, well, that's how we're really going to think about this. The Lord Almighty is with us, and the God of Jacob is our fortress. So I've tried to explain the psalm a little bit to you. I can't defend you from these shocking, daunting experiences. I can't, because they can come to anybody. God never said, I'm going to keep you safe from overwhelming experiences. He never really, made that promise. He didn't say, if you follow me, I'll sort of make sure that you never get highly stressed and nothing ever goes wrong, medical, situational. He never said that. He never said he'd defend us from every crisis. And there can be a time when everything is collapsing around you. Of course there can. But I think if you can hang on to some of these things we've spoken about, that God is a strong refuge. He's not a weak refuge that you take refuge in that lets you down. He's the strong refuge. He's ever present. Look, you've let me down. He won't let you down, but you've let me down. He's ever present. Very good. Actually, I think I forgot all about it myself. Otherwise, I'd have done it a bit more and you'd have kept in the swing. So, but he's our refuge and strength. He's ever present. Always there. Sorry, I wasn't even thinking that myself. His life flows through us like the river. We've trusted him in the past. He is the God of Jacob, God of Jesus, and our God today as well. Hold on close. Make the choice not to turn away from God at that moment, but to lean into him. And I think if you do, you will find that these situations when everything is collapsing around you. I once spoke to somebody a long time ago. It's something that stuck in my mind. And he was battling with sort of depression, really, very black feelings of depression used to come his way. But he was a Christian. And he said the difference his faith made to him was that he could still feel like he was falling down a shaft, but he no longer felt it was bottomless. He felt it was like a well shaft with a bottom, and eventually he would hit the bottom and be able to climb up again. It's an interesting way of putting it. But I think, I'm not saying things cannot be tough, but God won't let you collapse. If you cling on to him, he's going to cling on to you and hold you fast. So it's a great psalm, 46. Certainly a good one to remember if you want to remember one.